Yeah, for sure.
I prefer that.
The camera work. Somebody's taking care of all that.
Well, you know what? What are we? Tell us what we're supposed to do. Whether we're supposed to sit or whether we're supposed to stand. One of us.
No, Stacy.
Okay, so just make sure everybody knows. If not, we'll have a variety of stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna Stacy because the cameras are gonna be preset on you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good with that.
Yeah, so you both know all the stuff.
Well, buddy, you know what? The funny thing is, at this point in time, there really isn't anything that you can turn around and get challenged on, and you don't have someone to show for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's,
You know.
I'm sure a lot of people are making their minds up. And we'll find out this
Pardon?
Saturday. We'll find out Saturday when we get into it.
How much money do you think you spent?
Probably close to 3,000. On my own.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
But yeah, that's you know what? If I can influence the election or even just bringing some of the folks to
You did.
Portland.
You did.
Yeah, I did. I feel like it. You know, we're talking a lot of stuff. We got
How many was taken in saliva?
did start out. That was one of mine. No, that Yeah, I think at this point, I think everybody's. Yeah, exactly.
And that plant will probably go soon. You know, the reality of it.
Well, that's supposedly a healing plant. You have to come up with all the cuts and bruises.
Oh, it's an aloe vera. Okay, there we go.
That's right. They brought that in for me.
They brought it in for you so we can distribute it on our wounds. Is that it?
No, why would?
Revenue Canada was not in here. Revenue Canada was in.
I'm talking like 10 years ago. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
It might have been. Okay, that's fine. We'll just put them up on top. Well, mine was covering his. Well, it wasn't when we arrived.
Okay.
All good. So where are you hanging? Here or there?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Dave Hamilton, I'm the president of Black Press.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. So you guys can kind of see
Shit.
where I'll be.
Bob Shirley?
Hey.
You'll be hanging there?
Yeah, I'll be. You might be the toughest one going, but at the same, I might raise my grade.
Yeah, but you can hit him. You can actually reach him.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just smack.
Yeah.
Don't give extra attention to it. These guys will get pissed.
How many more minutes are we right?
We're about 6 minutes away.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to intro you, and what I'm going to do is just go left to right and say your name, and then go to the 30 seconds. So just introduce you all as the mayor candidates for 2018, and then we'll start your calling on the left. I won't say your name after that when Collins finish. Actually, no, I will. I'll say your name after Collins finishes. I'll probably after somebody. Perfect. I will say your name.
Yeah, we're just going to need to see it because, I mean, it was nice having the clock
Yeah.
count so I didn't be, time. But, I mean, that's okay.
We've done this a few times. That's why we do it late. You guys know your routine.
The skit.
Yeah. Just do your little skit on that thing. That's what they say about it. Do your skit on that. You and I just make eye contact. I'm going to sit down right now.
Did they mention to you the format's going to be remain seated?
Bobby, you need to smile.
Dave Hamilton, the president of Black Press.
Bobby Kennedy, nice to meet you.
Introducing you as the president of Black Press Media. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Black Press Media Open House. Interior side.
And I'm going to introduce you too, so it's going to be fun.
Technically, yeah. Sharing the love.
Oh, you guys are silent like your own.
4 or 5.
Never enough of us. Yeah, 4 minutes. Yeah. Plenty of time. I want my good Chris sauce. My wife's mentioned, so.
Are they clean? Are ready?
Look at my socks.
Everybody, you're not on camera. You're in the audience. Come on, smile, Will.
Yeah, you guys can do
All
that.
right, Caljo, come on. Get it.
Chilling out here a bit. You're lucky we cut out the swimsuit part of this year.
I have
It would have been really awkward. Yeah, wasn't it? Hey, Bob? It would be really awkward. We cut it out this year.
I had a
We
good
gotta
one.
sit.
Yeah, you did. I bet. I bet. I'm doing you all.
They
the
told
favors.
us to
Go.
sit. Because the cameras can't pick us up. Hey?
I just stand it up until we get going.
No, I know. I just talked to Denise.
Yeah, you're too tall for all of us. That's what I gotta say.
Strategies, yeah.
Wide.
Yeah, somebody say something. Jeez.
Well, you're coming up here to tell everybody to be quiet. And then
I feel like I'm getting upset. Yeah. All right, 5 minutes for Jericho. Starting now. No, we'll do that when we're on camera. I don't waste it. That's an applause break.
Just
Guaranteed.
inflate their heads.
putting your necks out there. Taking one for the team.
Yep. There it is. So you.
So who's building the wall? Which one of you guys are building the wall? Any of you? No? Just wondering who to vote for. You know?
Is home here for you?
I am, yeah. I'm based out of here. But I oversee the island division and the Okanagan.
Do you? These mics pick us up. Oh.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you here to our Black Press Media Mayoral Forum at Third Space. And to get things started, on behalf of Black Press Media, the president of Interior South Black Press, please welcome Dave Hamilton, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the KelownaCapNews.com election forum. My name is Dave Hamilton. I am the president of Black Press, Interior South Division. I'm just very proud to say Kelowna Capital News has been doing these sort of things and covering elections for 87 years in Kelowna, and that's something that we're all very proud of here at Black Press and Kelowna Capital News. I would also like to thank Ken Stubber from the Third Space Coffee for providing this great venue. This is amazing. I know some of you on camera or behind the camera can't see how great this venue is, but it's actually amazing. And also Solid Rock Video for the video production of tonight's event. And of course, I want to thank Rob for hosting this great event. And you're also going to see Carmen Weld walk around with the mics. So thank you, Carmen. We're also going to be live on KelownaCapNews.com and on Facebook this evening, as well as this video is going to be available on KelownaCapNews.com until the election day. So take it away, Rob and Carmen, and thanks a lot for you guys showing up and tuning in.
Thank you. Let's hear it for Dave Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank all of you for being here in person that had an opportunity to do so here at Third Space today. But also thank you to all of you online viewing on Facebook or on KelownaCapNews.com. A reminder that we are going to be taking questions from the online audience as well as our live audience tonight. So if you are online, if you're online at Twitter, you can send your questions to @KelownaCapNews. And if you are online through our Facebook @News Kelowna, you can send your questions to us. We'll be doing those near the end of the forum this evening. For those of you here in person and watching online right now, I would like to go over just the simple outline of how tonight's going to work. So our 4 mayoral candidates are going to be given 60 seconds each to answer each question that's been provided. So there have been 4 questions provided this evening and selected from the organizers of the events and local media here in town. They will get 60 seconds each to answer each question, and they will also be given a 30-second time period to respond to something said from another candidate if they so choose during that time. After that 4-question or 3-question period off the top, we will go to 2 audience questions and then the 2 online questions to sort of wrap up the evening here tonight. So, now that that formality is out of the way, we would like to introduce your 4 mayoral candidates here in Kelowna from left to right, starting with our current mayor at this time, Colin Bazaran, ladies and gentlemen. Sitting next to Colin tonight, we have Tom Dias. And then we have the Bobs, Bob Shuey, ladies and gentlemen. And on the far right, we have Bobby Kennedy, everybody. So to get everything started, we're going to give each candidate about 30 seconds, if you could, to please introduce yourselves and a little bit about what you're running for. Colin?
Excellent. Well, thank you, Rob, and I appreciate you hosting. Just want to take a moment to thank Third Space because they support many social causes to make sure our residents are cared for and supported. So I really want to thank Third Space. It's been an honor to have served our community for the past 4 years. And I'd really like the opportunity to continue working to ensure our city continues to progress economically, socially, and culturally, and that we are a progressive and inclusive community where everyone can have a hand in our city's success. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Colin Bazaran, ladies and gentlemen. Next, Tom Dias, everybody.
Thank you, Rob. Welcome, everyone. As we get closer to Saturday and we get closer to the timeline when we decide upon who will be our mayor for the next 4 years, I ask everyone to reflect a bit upon what has happened in the previous 4 with regards to the increase in the safety of our downtown core, the increase in taxes, with regards to commitments that were possibly made by transportation that were never fulfilled, and communication that did not happen with our neighborhoods and our organizations. I look forward to making a commitment to work towards resolving those items in the next 4 years when I become your mayor this Saturday. Thank you, Kelowna.
All right, next, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Shuey.
Thank you.
I just recently retired from the city bylaw department and was very much in the heart of the city bureaucracy for 12 years. My main platform points are affordability, livability, and the safety of Kelowna. City Hall policies and priorities have taken all three major issues in the wrong direction, and it continues to only get worse. Mayor and council must quit ignoring our citizens' wishes on major expenditures and developments. Our city has to get its spending under control and start placing the infrastructure, facilities, and needs of our community first, instead of spending huge sums of money on development that only benefit a few. Thank you.
And finally, on the far right, Bobby Kennedy.
Thank you, Rob Balston. My name is Bobby Kennedy. I don't think I need to tell you what I'm running on because you can go to bobbykennedy.ca or watch any of the last debates that we had. But I'm going to tell you who I'm running for. And that's I'm running for the people. I'm running for this little kid back here that actually doesn't even have a say. I'm running for a lady like Heather Taylor that had to write a letter to City Hall because she couldn't access her medicine and she had to go back into the hospital. I'm running for people like my little girls. I'm running for people like all of you out there. It's time that we take this city back into the people, clean up the streets, get it safer, get a cultural rejuvenation going, but most of all, just make everybody part of the bigger picture, part of the bigger movement. That's how you actually create change. One person can't do it alone. The community motto is fruitful in unity. Let's be unified. October 20th, vote Bobby Kennedy.
All right, well, that is the four mayoral candidates. I don't even know if I introduced myself. I could just be a random guy from Kamloops, but I am Rob Balston from Black Press Media here, and I will be your moderator tonight. It's better that you don't know who I am. My job is not to be seen or heard. Just to keep everyone on time, gentlemen, let's begin with some questions provided. We will be working left to right as far as these questions. So Colin, you will be first to answer this provided question. UBC Okanagan, Interior Health, and the tech sector each have clear strategies for sustainability in the Okanagan. With growing pressure on an already stressed watershed and increasing infrastructure deficits, how could the City of Kelowna demonstrate leadership in sustainability while also protecting the marginalized communities that are most vulnerable to the environmental change?
Well, that's a big question. So I would say I would start with two of the initiatives that we've already taken on and involved a lot of community engagement. So the first would be Imagine Kelowna, which is our community plan, which sets the stage for how we're going to make decisions and how we are going to include everybody in those decisions. The Imagine Kelowna initiative was the largest public engagement initiative the city has ever undertaken in its history and involved a lot of stakeholders. And so it's a community plan put together by the people. The other example I would then relate to is our Journey Home strategy, our homelessness strategy, where again, almost 2,000 people involved in its creation in helping look after our most vulnerable and marginalized citizens to make sure they have a roof over their heads, that make sure they have 24/7 supports and can become productive members of our community. So I would point to those two and the community engagement that was involved in putting those together as a way to move sustainably together to improve our community.
Perfect. And Tom, do you need the question repeated, or because it's a long one and I'd rather not?
I think I have the gist.
You
of
got it.
I
All
think I
right.
have the gist of it. Sustainability development is development that has to meet the needs of all the community without looking at sacrificing sections of it. So when you mention the university, when you mention Interior Health and all of the other components with regards to it, working alongside all of those partners to develop a plan within our community and communicating with those partners is the way to advance a sustainable community. It's not something that consultants can prepare for us. It's not something that city staff can prepare for us. In order for us to be able to move ahead as a community in the direction that all of those partners want to go, it's engagement. So we need to engage those individuals to find out what best practices they would associate themselves with and then build upon those best practices.
Bob Shuey, you are next.
Thank you. Sustainability is a big topic, and it's going to be tough to cover this really in just 1 minute. But I believe it's very much part of my platform with the affordability, livability, and safety of Kelowna. We have to recognize that we're growing and putting too much emphasis on this. We're growing too fast to become a big city, coming with all the associated big city costs and problems. We have to embrace and pursue new technologies in our community to help protect our environment. We have to put the needs and the infrastructure and the facilities of our residents first before we get off on grandiose projects, developments, whatever, that often just benefit just a few. Improvements to our public transit, encouraging of electric vehicles and electric bicycles, roadway infrastructure improvements would all help reduce our carbon footprint on the environment. How we handle waste, recycling, landfill practices continually must be updated. Provincial building codes, which are actually a minimal standard, we possibly could promote increased insulation, for example, on new construction and renovations. Thank you.
Bobby Kennedy.
We've been talking about it this whole election. We've been talking about it for years. We're absolutely going green. And part of the way we're going to do that is we're going to bring the green energy industry here. That's how we're going to get more sustainable. But if you really want to have a more sustainable community, I would suggest that you guys actually look into a little bit more of a sustainable council. Right now, there's going to be a lot of guys that don't even get on this stage. It's part of the reason I run for mayor, because I get to come for the big stage. So I want to shout out to a couple guys that are definitely going to help you get the sustainability. Loyal Woodridge, he's a business owner. He's got a big reach in the LGBTQ community, and he's absolutely an awesome guy. Dustin Sargent, he's going to be a tech liaison, former president of the DKA, Downtown Kelowna Association. Jeff Piatelli, very much unknown, musician, performer. He's going to help us with the cultural rejuvenation. He's also a farmer, and he knows about hard work, and he's going to be able to reach out to the ALR with us. And there's one guy, I don't think I need to tout his background. He's a UBCO professor. His name's Gord Lovegrove, one of the smartest guys I've talked to in this entire race. You absolutely need to look into these guys and give them a vote for sustainability. There's one guy who's an incumbent, and if he would have ran for mayor, he would have had my vote. His name's Brad Sieben. Make sure you vote him too.
All right, and again, for those of you watching at home, if you have a question you would like for these mayoral candidates, if you are on our Twitter account, you can go to @Kelowna Cap News to send us your questions, and on Facebook @News Kelowna if you would like to send us your questions. We're going to move on now to the second question, and we're going to start now with Tom Dias as we go through. The next question, much shorter. Whew, thank goodness. Tom Dias to start. What does a mentally healthy Kelowna look like and mean to you?
I think the most positive development with respect to recognizing mental health and working towards it is that it is now being recognized as an illness. For so many years it was hidden and it was not recognized at all. And the advancements within our community with Canadian Mental Health, with Foundry, with the services that are within our community to assist individuals has increased substantially within the last year. I think as a role that myself as a leader of this community would play, again, would be to continue to take input from those organizations and work alongside those organizations. They are the professionals and the experts in their field, and see how I can assist them in their endeavors and lobby on their behalf on a provincial and federal basis if need be.
Bob Shuey.
We must recognize mental health is a very important part of our community and very much a big component of the street people. Also recognize this is an issue of our general society. There should be no stigma attached to treating it, no matter where you are in the ladder of life. Someone with a broken leg gets it treated, no problem. For a broken brain, first we have to remove the stigma that is often attached and make it a priority to expand our services and facilities to deal with this issue at all levels of society, and it should be a priority. Thank you.
Bobby Kennedy.
Throughout my business career, I've dealt with a lot of teenagers that suffer with mental health. A lot of that comes from just not having confidence in themselves, confidence at home. So the minute that we start championing things like the Foundry that just turned 1 year old, the better. Recently with Kelowna, we've actually made cuts to mental health, which isn't the way I want to do it. Recently, a woman was attacked on Friday. We have 2 suspects that we're not going to release the names because we don't have them fully identified, but both of the guys severely suffer from mental health. So that being said, when we put up a $1,000 reward for someone that could bring him to justice, a man named Josh Pio brought him to awareness. So Josh, we're definitely going to talk to you, but that $1,000 right now is going to be donated, $500 to the Foundry to go towards mental health, and $500 towards Elizabeth Fry Society to protect the women. Take back the night, take back your brains, take back Kelowna.
Colin.
Thank you. So again, I go back to one word, and that's inclusion, because we are all a part of this community. So it means making sure that we are supporting everybody in our community and that they have access to the resources that they need. So it's one of the reasons why I was one of the first 2 people in this community to sign on to help advocate for the Foundry to be set up in our community. And I was asked by Canadian Mental Health Association to be one of the first supporters to advocate for its creation. And so a large part of it is continuing to advocate. While the others say they're going to make connections, I've already been a part of the Canadian Mental Health Association's Get Loud campaign to end the stigma. Previous to even being on council, I had a charity event where I donated funds back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. But it also means making sure that we treat people with dignity. So for example, we have partnered one of our police officers with a mental health worker, so that instead of taking people to jail if they happen to be involved in perhaps criminal activity or a disturbance, we get them help where they can be referred to treatment or get the help that they need, as opposed to being locked up like criminals. And so it's treating people with dignity and respect, and we're actually going to be increasing that police and crisis team with our RCMP next year.
And 30 seconds if you would like to respond. Yes, Tom.
I think it's probably just too important to note that if you are a mayor of a community at a time when a new building was to open, something like the Foundry, that without a doubt it would come to your attention first. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce when that was going through, and again, it came to my attention first. So it makes the playing field a little unlevel for some of us up here, because that obviously, as a mayor, would be one of the first things that you would deal with.
Thank you.
You can challenge?
Response? Yes, Bobby.
I just want to put this question out there. If you're the first to champion it, why were you the first to cut the mental health funding?
What mental health funding would that be? Could you be specific?
Michelle Baird told me all about the mental health funding. She's the one that was doing the thing for even the men who have been taken advantage of.
So if you, I don't even know what program you're talking about.
Just
so if
in
you can't
total.
name the program, I
Kelowna
don't even
City-
understand which.
Okay, Bobby, if you
which
can finish
program
your
you're
thought.
cutting.
Bobby, finish your thought, and then Colin a chance to respond. Bobby, finish the question. And
City
we'll
of
give him a
Kelowna, quote, "We're not in the business of mental health."
chance to respond.
That's completely not true to say that we are not in the business of mental health. When the Journey Home strategy and the various plans that we are putting together with consultation of our social agencies obviously speaks to that and how untrue that is.
Okay. Bob, anything to add? Okay. Thank you. And please listen to me when I speak, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Doesn't happen at home. It should happen here, though. There it is. One joke. You got it. All right. Moving on. Bob Shuey will be the first to respond to this supplied question. Frontline workers in the overdose crisis have continually raised concerns that there is no place in Kelowna for people who are struggling with drugs to seek treatment for their addiction. What will you do to create change? Bob.
This is an issue that I've stated before. I'm not happy with how rehab has been made like a voluntary, treated as a voluntary system. And unfortunately, I think that we're possibly falling down on this. I've stated in the past I'd like to see it be mandatory for certain individuals. I realize that those are challenges, of course, that the legal system would throw at us. And what I'm trying to say is possibly we have to look at ways of how we offer this service and maybe make it a little more friendly to the people that are going through it. But we hope, and I've seen this as a bylaw officer on the street, people return back on the street, go back down to the spiral of falling back down, and we got to stop that cycle.
Thank you. Bobby Kennedy.
The addiction crisis just isn't in the streets. I've had multiple friends this year actually die of addiction, overdoses on opiates. And say what you want to say about them, sometimes they're just out there having fun and maybe they got the wrong stuff. One of those guys is a guy named Milosh Benes. Rest in peace, buddy. He's one of these champions of this community. Biggest smile, biggest heart, smart brain, smart kid. Just got caught up in the wrong thing one time. So part of the way that we're doing on this platform is we're generating revenue. And one of the ways we're going to do that is capitalizing on the cannabis industry. And when we bring the CCT, the city cannabis tax, we're going to have a lot of money that's made off of the back end sale on those dispensaries. A lot of it's going to come from tourism. This is designed to lower your taxes, but it's also designed to be able to come up with a community plan where we put this stuff back in. So when we generate this revenue, addiction services and drug counseling is absolutely going to get some of that money.
Colin Bazar.
Thank you. Well, this is precisely what the Journey Home strategy aims to help with. So it calls for 300 housing units with 24/7 supports. But more importantly, it also calls for 500 community support spaces for things like detox, treatment, drug replacement therapy. So this is speaking precisely to the issues that you've mentioned, not to mention the fact that we also have a community action team as a result of the advocacy work that council has done with the provincial government and with the great relationship we have with the addictions minister, Judy Darcy. And so she has given funding to the city of Kelowna to create a community action team, which is working right now. And its sole responsibility is to address the opioid crisis and reduce the number of deaths in our community, including ending the stigma, because there is still a stigma and people use alone because they are afraid to come out to their families or to say that they have an issue and that they need help. So we've got to help end the stigma, but we have to implement the Journey Home because it is going to help people in our community.
Tom Dice.
Will you read it one more? The question
Sure
one
can.
more time? It's been a bit.
Frontline workers in the overdose crisis have continually raised concerns that there is no place in Kelowna for people who are struggling with drugs to seek treatment for their addiction. What will you do to create change?
The effects of drugs within our community does not just affect the individual who uses the drugs. It affects their family, it affects their friends, it affects our whole community with regards to the costs associated with respect to taking care of them. There is, as you have mentioned, there is nowhere for those individuals to go at this point in time. If they go to one of the available services within our town, and there is not space for them at that point in time, they're asked to come back sometime later. That's not how it works. They need the attention right immediately at that time. There has been a few individuals that I have known who are friends who have regrettably died from the fentanyl crisis, and it's treatment that is needed immediately. It goes back to the idea of not waiting for something to happen from a point of 3 to 5 years down the road, but lobbying and discussing and putting your partners together so that there's something for them immediately at this time.
Any responses to any of the answers to that question? All right. We are going to move forward and move into the audience now for a few questions. Carmen Weld from Black Press Media on her way around to find an audience question.
Hello, my name is Lisa Simone, and my question is in regards to the safety of the downtown core. What, as mayor, are you prepared to improve the downtown core, not only for the citizens, but the business owners as well? Thank you.
All right, and we are starting now with Bobby Kennedy at the far right. Bobby.
I am a business owner in the downtown core, and for the last 4 years, I've been seeing this get worse and worse. So, I mean, it's absolutely imperative that we actually just start doing something. Friday night, a woman was attacked right in that downtown core. And like I said, we have some suspects for it. But what I really think that we need to do, because my skateboard got put on that front page, like we might have had something to do with it, and we didn't. But what we do have to do with it is we actually have a chance to make a change here. So that's what we did. That's why we put up a reward. That's why we have people come in with suspects information. So something that I think that we could actually do, because when I started working with the police on this, it's actually really, really hard to get them to phone you back. We'll phone you tomorrow. It's a couple days away. This guy right here, he might not be the guy that's actually going to win mayor this year, but you can't say that he's not passionate about cleaning up this city, that he doesn't know a lot about the bylaws and all that stuff. So what I would do as mayor is I would actually create a position for him where he's actually a bit of a liaison between bylaw, RCMP, and the city. So if you're not getting a phone call back, you phone Bob Shue, and then he'll phone down to bylaw, then he'll phone down to RCMP, and we'll actually get some action going down in this city. So Bob Shue, I hope that you do get that job, because I am going to be mayor, and I'm going to give it to you.
All right, Colin Basran.
Yeah, thank you very much. So firstly, I just want to say that we need to continue to invest in the resources to make sure that our safety personnel have the resources to be able to take people off our streets who are preying on our most vulnerable. And so in the last 4 years, we've hired 18 RCMP officers, 7 bylaw officers. We've hired a number of private security companies to patrol different parts of our community. So it's a balance between enforcement and making sure that people have a sense of safety, but it's also making sure, again, that we have steps in place to make sure that we're making meaningful change, and that means getting people off of our streets into housing with 24-hour supports, 24/7 supports, and it also means making sure that, like I talked about, that there are the community resources available to make sure that these people can then continue along the path of recovery and become productive members of our community. And oftentimes what we see with people with lived experience is that they come back and are mentors after they've been through programming. They are mentors for others on the street to be able to help them in their progression and their journey. So it really is a sustainable way of making our community safer.
Tom Dias.
This would be one of the top items for this election, this round. What's happening in our downtown core and it not being addressed properly through the last 4 years. I think everybody can agree that it's just gotten continuously worse. We are now sitting with the fourth highest crime rate in all of Canada, just with the most recent report left that just came out. To look at addressing the problem, if we do not address the problem, what is going to happen is the businesses that are down in that area are going to leave. When they leave, the landlords still need to rent those properties. When they start to rent those properties and they can't get someone in them, they're going to reduce the rates. When they reduce the rates, it's only going to compound and get worse down there. We need to look at advocating and bringing back the auxiliary police. We need to reach out to the faith communities and get them engaged. We need to involve the neighborhood associations. We need to advocate the community courts to the Crown to bring back community courts and involve business community. We were, and this is something that I have said a number of times, the business community was knocking at the door of City Hall, wanting to be involved, wanting to engage, wanting to help, and that door was closed on us. You can't do that. It's a community problem. We need to be a community to solve it.
Bob Shue.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. I've got a lot of points on this, and I come with my experience as being a bylaw officer. Basically, we have to start with recognizing we've got 2 groups of people in the downtown, and basically that boils down to those that qualify, those that are willing to work with the system, good programs like Journey Home, etc., and they're willing to live within the community's rules. These people we have to help as soon as possible and get them off the street. We also have to recognize there's another segment of the street people that are very aggressive. They're preying on the weaker of their crowd. They're also stealing, they're shoplifting, they're vandalizing, they're drug dealing, they're pimping. And they way of life, they themselves, they are not welcome here. We have to make that clear. I also want to stress that I do advocate moving the temporary shelters away from the downtown core, well away from our residential and commercial areas, possibly industrial areas. And also we very much have to change the format, the setup, how we operate these temporary shelters. For example, they have to be able to stay on site and away from the street influences if they so choose. And that's what's going to help them. Thank you.
Yes, a response, Bobby Kennedy.
I think in the last 4 years, that's been our answer more and more, is more police, more bylaw. Go down on Leon, 7 o'clock in the morning, the bylaws just kick these guys awake with their boots. They're just a super expensive alarm clock. Adding more and more each year, if it's not making the solution better, then it's not actually the solution, okay? So what we need to do is if we have that much money to put to more and more police and more bylaw, then maybe we should put a little bit more of it to prevention. And so far, I've heard a lot of guys getting more and more bylaw, more and more police, but they haven't actually come up with a way to come with more and more money. We're the only candidates that's actually generating revenue for you. So if you want more and more bylaw, you better get more and more money out of your pocket to pay for it.
Colin first, 30-second response.
So the reason why we are implementing the Journey Home is so we don't have to continue to hire police and bylaw, and that's the reason why. The auxiliary program hasn't gone away. It actually diminished a bit because of a federal ruling, because of an officer who was killed, an auxiliary officer, but it's in the process of being reestablished. The Chamber of Commerce actually signed off on the Journey Home program, and we're supporters of it and are still supporters of it. And also in regards to the great work that churches do, they would love to keep helping with the social issues, but the opioid crisis and social issues are becoming so complex, they actually don't have the training to be able to help people meaningfully, although they are very well intentioned, but the problem is becoming so great that it's often difficult for them to be able to know what to do or to handle the situation.
Bob Shuey next, then Tom.
I just wish to say that there's many more details to this. I have some of that on my Facebook site, and there was an ad today in the papers and so on that got into this a lot more detail. Check out my Facebook site. I'll make a point of putting more detail on this very issue on there tonight when I get home. And I do say certainly there's more to this than just what we've covered. Thank you.
Tom.
Two comments that I'd like to make. One with regards to the auxiliary. I have been in touch and communication with the auxiliary, and there has been no lobbying on their behalf to be reinstated that they are aware of. There was two issues. One was with regards to a gun being discharged, and the other was a uniform thing. The gun was discharged up in Williams Lake. So from their standpoint, they've had no lobbying from the city moving forward their agenda. The other point, I think, with regards to the Chamber of Commerce endorsing the Journey Home, without a doubt, I was president at that point in time, and I sat on the task force, and I still think that the Journey Home program is an excellent program moving forward. But all the time I was saying there's nothing for the immediate time that we're dealing with, and businesses are losing money, and it was everything we were saying to try to deal with something immediate was constantly falling upon deaf ears.
Bobby again.
I love the Journey Home strategy, but that's just the tip of the iceberg on this thing. We need to get way more of this going. And you know what's wrong with the Journey Home strategy? Not that it's not a good strategy, it's the timeline. So that's what we're going to do when we're generating this revenue is we're going to speed up this timeline. Right now, the Journey Home strategy is like dial-up internet. We're going to be high speed.
Okay, thank you. And now to the audience for our second audience question.
Okay, my name is Myrna Park, and this is a slightly lighter note. But I live on WFN land, but I own property in Kelowna, so this concerns me quite a bit. WFN land is really pretty. There are sidewalks. There is really nice landscaping. You can see it in the difference. Coming into Kelowna, for example, the old McDonald's site, every year I have to report it so the weeds can get chopped down. It is flipping ugly. And we're not doing, those are the things that attract people to our community to pay taxes and support all these businesses we want to support. What would you like to do to make Kelowna more beautiful?
All right, and we start with Colin Bazaran on this one.
Sure. So there's a number of things that I'd continue to do to make Kelowna more beautiful. So one, I'm really proud of the fact that we've purchased some waterfront properties in our community to establish and create greater access to the lake, because the lake is our crown jewel. So that would be one thing. Continuing to make sure that Kelowna is a great place for investment. So our downtown, for example, is becoming revitalized and rejuvenated because of the investment we're seeing from outside developers and people who are seeing what's happening in our community with the growth of tech, with the healthcare facilities, our knowledge-based economy growing. So we are becoming a beautiful place, and it's going to happen over time with continued investment in our community. And then also working with the arts community. I think we have a great opportunity to beautify, and I'll use the Laneway project along Earls as an example, where it cost very little money, yet it beautified a lane that really wasn't being utilized. And so we can continue to do these great little community projects that also can have a huge impact. So there are a number of things that we can do to beautify our community. The McDonald's site, unfortunately, is tied up with lawsuits that no amount of lobbying, what you may hear from other candidates, is going to change. But we continue to work through the courts in order to get that addressed.
Thank you. Tom Dice.
Myrna, thank you for the question. It would be goods to look into the McDonald's site. I've heard varying opinions with regards to that lawsuit and whether that's something that could possibly be resolved. And I have seen that building, and it's created a great eyesore for myself also. I have spoke with individuals in also in Rutland with regards to potential or promises that were made to them with regards to beautifying their streets. Something that I couldn't believe this year that happened was the children's water park in City Park. I know there was a flood, and I know there was some situation that had, but that it wasn't a priority, and that is something that is free to the community and free to children, that it didn't make the priority list to take care of that and fix that situation. Also walking, if you go for a walk along in City Park and you walk along the pathway with regards to the pathways and how they go up and down, and there was numerous comments and letters to the editor this year about would somebody please start to clean up the downtown core. It was shortly after that and closer to the election that I began to see the sweepers out and those powered sweepers. But prior to that, there was lots of comments on how dirty the downtown core was.
Thank you. Bob Shuey.
This is very much part and central of my platform. I still say right up front that we have to start making the needs, the facilities, and the infrastructure of our community first. Our residents must come first and not spend great sums of money on future developments that only benefit a few. And it's a matter of priorities and policies. The Cedar Avenue Beach, which was promised to residents in the area years ago, the city's acquired the properties, but they still haven't developed the beach, saying that they haven't got enough funds and it's not a priority. And it's the same with all these other areas where the city residents should come first. And big developments benefit only a few. They can wait. And we're just rushing to become a big city with these expenditures that bring us the big city problems and the big city costs. And we're burying ourselves that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Bob Kennedy.
I've got all the respect in the world for the West Banks First Nations, and you're absolutely right. They do have it going on over there, and they're not even just making it beautiful. They're building skateboard parks for their kids. They're taking care of their people. And I think where they started doing that is because their people didn't always have the easiest time, and they're trying to make it better for them, trying to make people, a community, come together, and beautification is part of that. And that McDonald's site is a great example. People are going to say that thing shut down because the road got switched, and that is part of why it shut down. But think about how long ago that place shut down. There was a gigantic meth epidemic at once upon a time in this town, and I used to reside right in that parking lot. There was a Tim Hortons, there was a McDonald's, there used to be a big apartment building over there that got revitalized because that's where they all hung out. So when Colin talks about the laneway down at Earls, it is beautiful now, and that's very much why we need to start supporting the arts community more. And there is a big opportunity to combine industrial design with art, so there's eye-catching stuff that serves the people. But what else I want to talk about in that laneway is there's a shipping container that got turned into a business. It's a taco stand. So when I talk about these shipping containers being turned into homes, they can be turned into business, they can be turned into all sorts of things. Also, what we need to do is start working with some of these diverse abilities. A lot of these guys volunteer to clean up garbage and things like that at the mission. They could be working for us for a subsidized wage because a lot of them have disability checks that they can't make so much. They're the best ambassadors in the world. I've never met one with a mean bone in their body, and they have a work ethic like you would never believe. So that's how I would start cleaning up this city.
Okay, and in response, Tom Dias.
Just in addition to something that Bob Shuey had said with regards to Cedar Street, Cedar Park down there, I had discussions with them, and that they had came forth and looked forward at making a proposal where what they would do is the houses that are there, they would look at removing the houses and a consortium of individuals and look at taking care of that park, even know that there's future plans for it, as opposed to having the houses that are on them right now, because those are actually city houses. And what they have been saying is that the upkeep on those houses is additional costs and continual costs that the city is bearing.
Yes, Colin Bazran in response.
So we continue to work with the Residents Association in that area on ways to advance that, and we're also looking at policies in regards to our DCCs and the way those are allocated in towards parks that could help advance that. And then I just want to touch on the Children's Water Park. It flooded in 2017, and knowing full well that it was going to take a major renovation to bring it back up to use, and knowing the snowpack this year was going to create further flooding problems. Had we fixed it, all it would have done is reflooded and been damaged again. And so what we plan to do is do a far more extensive renovation to fix it so that flooding won't affect it anymore.
Good. Bobby Kennedy.
I think somewhere along the lines, this city was promised upwards about $250 million. Don't quote me exactly on that, for doing a height variance on a new hotel. So I want to know when that money's coming down the pipe, because there's supposed to be a gigantic revitalization of that whole city park. And there's a planner named Peter McCormick who talked to me about this 3 years ago and dropped me off the map with the new plan, proposed new plan. So I don't know where the money is, and I don't know this is coming. But if a water park's flooded, isn't that the main key of that water park, is to have water? How is it not draining? Like, why is it not working? Been going to that skateboard park since 1995.
Okay, question asked. Is that all? All right. With that, we are headed to our online questions for this forum. I believe they'll be coming up on the screen for those of you here in person. And there are 2 questions from online through our Twitter and Facebook social media streams. If it doesn't come up on the screen, I'll be reading them anyway. So don't worry, you're in good hands. All right, so here's your first question. How will you partner and collaborate with the provincial and federal governments to obtain grants and further discussions for municipal issues? This question is led off with Tom Dias. Tom, the question is on the board if you still need to read it. I'll read it one more time, again, for our people at home. How will you partner and collaborate with the provincial and federal governments to obtain grants and further discussions for municipal issues?
This is a great question, because it's what I've been actually very involved with for the last 10 years, working with the Chamber of Commerce. My role that when I got involved it was advocacy. So if we look at invasive mussel species, if we look at interprovincial transfer of wine, property transfer tax, South Okanagan Provincial Park, and there's a number of other ones that go on, I have been lobbying with provincial and federal governments and actually goings to them for requests. So depending upon what the situation is and actually what we're lobbying for within the city, whether it be grant funding for infrastructure, whether it be events that we want to look at having. Recently, just an example of this is recently I just lobbied with the provincial governments to get a certain amount of grant money to assist us in bringing the Memorial Cup here, which was successful in completing that bid. In completing that bid, it will have an economic impact to our community of somewhere in range of $15 to $20 million. So that's a perfect example of doing something, being able to lobby, communicate with them, and bringing economic value to our community. And it would be the same for any lobbying position with regards to federal government.
Thank you, Tom. Bob Shuey.
I likewise would say that, yes, we have to approach the appropriate authorities. We have to clarify, first of all, when we have a project or an issue or a situation where we need to improve on, we have to recognize who's involved, who has to fund it, the city's responsibilities in that, and then we move forward. It's simply a matter of clarifying who's where, what, and then working with everybody together at the table. And I don't see any complexity in that other than, yes, we got to get everybody together at the same time, hopefully, and discuss these issues and jurisdictions and who's going to fund what and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby Kennedy.
One of the things is when we start generating money and not just asking taxpayers and federal governments for money, we're going to be able to do things. I remember when I was a kid and I'd ask to go to the movies, my dad would say no when he had to give me the money. Once I got a job, I started going to a lot more movies. The other thing that I would actually do is I'd actually start working together with the other people that are in our valley and start proposing our ideas to these people on a much bigger picture, that we're a greater region, we're a valley, we're absolutely going to be the next big thing in British Columbia. The coast is developed, it's pushing out. The minute that these guys start developing in us, the minute we're going to connect to the coast, and our trades and everything are going to benefit from this, okay? So as one of the only two people up here that have owned a business, there's a thing in business called a buying group. So once we start banding together with the rest of the guys in this valley, we're very much creating a buying group, and we have strength in numbers. I just did a forum at the Quail Ridge Residents Association where community planner Ryan Smith came out, and he actually introduced their new junior planner, who he said they stole from Summerland. And then he made a joke saying, since this guy came, we stole 3 more. And we went to the UBCM conference. The Summerland guy is actually really mad at us. So I want to apologize for you. And I also want to let you know, you can have Ryan Smith if you want him.
Thank you. Colin Bazran.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm really proud of the track record that this previous council has had. Almost $150 million in grant funding we've received from the federal and provincial governments for some really important projects, including the water integration project, which was given grant funding from the previous provincial government and the current provincial government, which I think speaks to the fact that this council can get along with anybody who's in that office. I also just want to point out that the Memorial Cup funding that Tom advocated for was through a letter to the provincial government, which I also signed. So I think that that's important to point out in terms of the advocacy and the power of advocating together. And then I think it's important to note that the collaboration we're getting with BC Housing right now to put 88 supportive housing units in our community this year, 102 units planned next year. So I think the relationship is going well, but it can be better. But I think that this speaks for itself that we've been very successful in getting grant funding, and we will continue to be.
In response, Tom Dice.
Just point of clarification. I spoke with the minister, knew which minister it was going to, drafted the letter, delivered it to City Hall, and it was signed.
Bobby Kennedy, in response.
Let's bring the cup back, Rockets. Go Rockets, go, go Tom. Way to bring that cup here.
Thank you to Shannon Stevenson and her Facebook question. We're going to move on now to our next social media question from online. Again, the screen, if you guys can. Council recently approved Airbnb for a large portion of high-density housing downtown. Do all of the candidates agree that this is the best way to encourage residents living downtown rather than short-term rentals? Are any of the candidates willing to take a sober second look at this zoning? Yes, a wordy question. Very much so an Airbnb question in regards to short-term rentals downtown and the Airbnb concern. Tom, do you need a moment?
Yeah, no, I'm just reading it. Sorry.
It's all right. We are starting with.
Bobby, anyways.
Yep, we are starting with Tom Dias on this question.
Yeah.
Oh, is it you, Bob? Yes. That's okay. I won't be back next year.
Neither will we.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. It'll be 4 years. I'll learn. I'll learn by then. Bob Shuey.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
I feel I'm a little bit of an advantage on this one because I did deal with this issue while I was a bylaw officer. Personally, I am reluctant to endorse or to really embrace the Airbnb's issue. It is a source of revenue for property owners, but quite often they become party houses. I've dealt with these problem properties, and most importantly, I gotta stress, quite often, it's an out-of-town owner that is renting the property, and it's become a party house, and therefore it's a big thorn in the neighborhood for the existing other residents. That being said, if we do embrace it, we have to up our enforcement if we do have noise complaints, and we have to look at, okay, maybe 3 strikes, you lose your license, as the mayor said, and rightfully so, but with that has to come appropriate penalties, and we have to put this issue, not a BON, bylaw enforcement notice, which goes to adjudication, which is really has no teeth. We have to put it back into the court arena to deal with it properly if we have a problem property. Thank you.
You're next, right, Bobby? Okay, I got this now. Bobby Kennedy.
You want to answer this one?
No. No, I could barely read it.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to Michelle Rule. She used to be on city council, and she's still a very big part of this community and leader. But some people might not know, she's actually been suffering from some health issues in the recent years. So all our best to you, Michelle. Airbnb, I don't actually really think short-term rental goes with it. A lot of people are using Airbnbs in place of hotels and stuff. So I'm gonna have to disagree on the noise complaints more than what I've found from talking to residents, is especially out at that Quail Ridge Forum. This came up a lot. Was a lot of it's parking. So I would go more to the community in which they're getting rented and actually just kind of reach out, see which people want those types of things, because hotels are very expensive and we definitely want tourism to keep coming here, and this is a way to increase tourism. These are the types of ideas that are like Uber for cars and all those stuff. We got to start thinking outside the box. If you want to come to Kelowna and it's May long weekend, try getting a hotel. You're not going to get one. But if you're a guy that's going out of town, or you have a secondary suite in your basement and you want to have an Airbnb, absolutely. Cost of living's going up. Any way I can help you to pay your bills, let me know. Vote Bobby Kennedy.
Thank you. Colin Bazran.
Sure, thank you. So one of the things that I continue to mention, and is my campaign slogan, is a balanced way forward. And so I think we do need a balance when it comes to invigorating our downtown. So right now we have a number of projects that are market housing projects that are for sale. That we have a number of projects that are rental only. And I think there's also an opportunity to have short-term rentals because we want a balance. And short-term rentals are attracting people here to our community that are spending dollars in our community. So, and it's an experience that some tourists want. So I think it's trying to strike a balance between trying to keep our tourism industry strong, but also making sure that we have permanent housing in our downtown as well, so that the local businesses downtown get frequent visitors year-round. And so I just want to also make the comment that we have plans to bring in short-term rental regulations into this community later on, actually in the spring, or not the spring, but in the early new year, which will address some of the concerns that people have, like parking, like noise, and put in rules to regulate it and enforce it. So at the end of the day, it's about balance and providing housing needs and tourism opportunities for everybody.
Thank you. Tom Dias. Yeah, I knew it was going to be your turn eventually. Yes.
Thank you.
Tom.
I have gone away and used Airbnb, so I understand the value of it, of having it within a community. The regulation of them and how they work within a community is extremely important. There's a little bit of an unfair playing field when we have our hotel taxes that hotels pay, and there isn't the same level of tax on an Airbnb. And the industry itself is concerned with regards to how that's affecting them and being unfair. I think that if we're going to look at, and all of the other candidates up here have said this with regards to parking and those other components, but I think that if we're going to look at allowing these, one is there's a licensing aspect that should be in place to allow that to happen, and then there should also be the same level of hotel tax for them, and that because they are using our community, they are using the things within our community, and if they were staying at a hotel, they'd be paying that, so it's only fair to kind of translate that back to that experience.
Thank you. In response, first, Bobby Kennedy.
So my understanding from that the hotel tax and stuff is to benefit off the tourism for our economy. That's exactly what the city cannabis tax does on the sale of recreational marijuana. That's something that the tourists don't do each year that go back into your city, is pay taxes, but they come use that beach, that lake, and everything at the same rate you do for those 4 months. So that's why it's imperative that we capitalize on this cannabis, because a large portion of this CCT that's going to go towards that drug homeless, all of that stuff is going to come from tourism, and that is one of our industries. And I'm going to make this place a 4-season tourism town, so we're going to be capitalizing all year.
Thank you. Bob Shuey was next, and then Tom. Bob?
Thank you. I just want to summarize again, once again, if we do embrace this, then certainly we do have to have a mechanism to deal with those individual properties that become a problem. And we have to have that as a check and balance. And I just, from my own experience and what we've done in the past, we need that as well as an update. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Dias in response.
And I believe that there's the possibility of that being understood by those that have Airbnbs, and that some of that revenue that is received from that tax that is paid could go to make sure that that security is there for them. Because as Bobby said, they do use everything within our community. So without using those, all of the amenities, it's only fair that if you're staying at a Ramada and you're paying that tax, and if you're staying somewhere else, that you would also.
Thank you. In response, yes, Colin Bazar.
Well, I just want to say that all of the ideas put forth have been incorporated into a report that Council received in regards to the framework for Airbnb rules and regulations. So this isn't anything new. And then in regards to cannabis, I just want to say that one of the issues is the provincial government has yet to say what portion of revenue municipalities will be receiving. So I think it's important to note that we can't make plans before before we even know how much money we're getting. And if we're going to implement our own municipal tax, we need to make sure that it's not so much that it's going to push the price up and force people to buy it from the black market, which is what we're trying to prevent with the whole legalization.
Thank you. In response, Bobby.
He's already responded to the question. So
Are you afraid that I know more about this than you?
No, I'm sure you do.
I absolutely do. If you guys go on Castanet, any article that mentions cannabis, OC College is training in it, everybody, this is the biggest opportunity since the prohibition of alcohol ended for your economy, okay? So if you knew a little bit more about it, Colin, you would know that the British Columbia government actually just imposed a 15% tax. So that would go on top of the 12% tax. That would take you up to 27. So if we went there with a 3% tax, it could be 30. We could go to a 5. It would be 32. And there's actually this little thing. It's these 3 circles, and they come together, and it tells you what you're allowed to do with the taxes. And the cities are absolutely allowed to make their own one. And this city cannabis tax is only going back to your city. We're not asking for the UBCM to give us any money. We're making our own. Understand that.
Thank you. This was a question.
Since you had a second time to rebut, I would like
you
another chance,
definitely
please.
can.
We can do this one all night on this.
This is an Airbnb question.
All I want to say,
I would like you do get to respond, and then I am shutting it
all
down.
I will say is that millions, Millions of dollars has already been invested in our community in regards to people who are making investments and helping grow the cannabis industry in our community. And recently, RE/MAX of Western Canada said that Kelowna was a hot spot in the entire country in terms of retail cannabis. So I think it just shows that there is support to grow this industry in our community, and there is tremendous opportunities.
Thank you.
Why did they just do a report that you guys have 0 applications
Bobby,
in on the dispensaries?
time. It's time. I want to stay at your Airbnbs, I'll tell you that. Woo! They sound fun. And legal tomorrow. Okay. Wow, does this make my final question more exciting, ladies and gentlemen? This is it. Let's wrap this up. Before we do, I would like a round of applause for the 4 candidates, their courage and time and taking on this major task. This question is not from the internet. It is not from the audience. This is a submitted question that we will wrap this up on, hopefully, in not too long, and we will stay on topic. In closing, and Bobby, you get to start this. Am I right? Everyone, I got it now. Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Bobby, you can start this one. This is our final question. Again, I want to thank all the candidates for being here, and again, for your courage to run for this position here in our town. In recent elections across the globe, there's been a lot of commentary about the growing ugliness of the political arena. How would you characterize this race? Bobby Kennedy.
I would characterize this race as a 2-horse race. Myself and Tom and I, and I'm the right choice for mayor. Vote Bobby Kennedy October 20th. If you want to capitalize on cannabis, you want to generate revenue, you want to do a cultural rejuvenation, you want to bring green energy, you want to actually have ideas, I want to remind you guys something. You might think I'm young. John F. Kennedy, one of the best presidents the United States ever had, elected to the House of Representatives when he was 30 years old. And something that man said that I definitely believe. Those who look only to the past and present are certain to miss the future. Invest in people, invest in me, on the future of this community, and we're going to do it together.
Thank you, Bobby. Colin Bazarin.
Way to keep it on target there, Rob.
Thank you, guy. I brought it right back. Yeah, thank you.
You know what? At the end of the day, everyone is doing the best around this table they can to get their vote out and to get people to support them. And some will use different tactics than others, but at the end of the day, we all care about our community. We all want to make it better. And so, some of us will choose different routes in order to make that happen. But at the end of the day, will our community ultimately be better as a result? I hope so. And I think that at the end of the day, regardless of who the winner is, we all need to come together and put that aside and continue to make this city an awesome place to be.
Thank you, Colin.
Well said.
Tom Dias.
When I started considering that it'd be something that I do is run for mayor of this city, what I knew that I would bring to the table was knowledge of issues, so that there would be open and transparent discussion of a number of things within our community, and that's what I wanted to do. It's a new area, it's a new venture to look at running for politics, and I can honestly say that. How the community has embraced that all 4 of us have come forward and I'm putting our names forward is amazing. There will be differences between us. There will be conversations. I think that's the beauty of this, because we're all we all want what is best for this community in our own ways, and I think that good conversation and good debate will only make the city stronger at the end of the day.
Thank you. And Bob Shuey.
Thank you. I have to say that I think our spirited debates, and sometimes they have got very spirited, is truly a sign of the passion that all of us have for this community. And I agree that this community is stronger for it. We do have different visions, truly. That's hopefully clearly understood, and that's basically what this forum and this community's discussion has come down to in this election. And I hope that everybody thinks carefully what they want and gets out and votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. in
Speaking of
response.
everybody getting out and voting, there's going to be a party at the Habitat on October 20th. It's called the Everybody Votes Showcase. You don't have to vote for me. You don't have to vote for any of these mayors. You just got to get out and vote for at least somebody, whether it's a school trustee, city council, whatever it is. You get out and vote. That's how you get into this event. You show up with that sticker that says I vote. That's one of the first things of the cultural rejuvenation. This is one of the first things that people fought for their whole lives, was to have that voice heard. So you make sure you go out and get it heard on October 20th. This is called the Everybody Vote Showcase, because what we're doing is we're inviting all musicians and performers to go on the Everybody Votes Facebook, Everybody Vote Showcase Facebook page, post your video of yourself performing, and we're going to contact you, because you're going to be the first way that we showcase all the talent that's in this valley. October 20th, get out and vote, then come party at the Habitat and celebrate everybody's right to have their voice heard.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up. I again want to thank all 4 candidates. I want to thank everybody who got to be a part of our live audience, and those of you watching online at Kelowna Cap News or on our Facebook feed. Thank you very much for being a part of this. There's a lot of people we couldn't have done this without, including everyone here. A round of applause for Third Space Coffee Shop for providing the space. We also want to thank Solid Rock Video for the video feed that you're watching live online. A round of applause for all of them being here tonight, making us look good. We're just going to take a brief intermission and come back for 4 more hours. I'm kidding. It is the home stretch. Good luck to all 4 candidates, and thank you very much. You can check this out online at KelownaCapNews.com.